welcome to Plead the Facts, presented by KI Legal. On today's episode, KI Legal co-founder Andreas Koutsoudakis is joined by Rob Nixon, real estate sales and leasing associate at PreReal, to discuss the importance of Staten Island's commercial real estate market in the New York City context.
So welcome to Plead the Facts. Excited to have you here today. Today we have Rob Nixon, a good friend of mine from Staten Island, in the real estate business. Rob, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do, and then we'll get right into it.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me. So yes, my name is Rob Nixon. I am a broker based out of Staten Island. I run a real estate team at PreReal Estate, which is we've been in business now a little over a year, but we have decades of experience. We were formerly Cassandra Properties, which was definitely a very well-known commercial brokerage on the island. I've run a team there that focuses on both commercial and residential real estate. However, for the most part, I oversee the commercial investment sales and retail leasing portion.
All right, awesome. How long have you been doing this now?
Going on a decade.
My
10
goodness.
years.
You got a lot more than me. Tells you a lot about which part of the deal is harder, the lawyer side or the real estate side.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite part of this business? I mean, at this point, 10 years, you've covered a lot of different things that have happened to the world, to the industry, to the market, to our community. You know, for those of you who don't know, I'm also from Staten Island. And so, you know, there's been a lot that's transpired over the years. We've grown, and what's your favorite part about it?
I guess my favorite part about it is that it's constantly moving. It's every day is completely different, which certainly has its negatives, but I think for the most part it keeps it exciting, keeps it fluid, and I think it just kind of keeps me very alert to kind of what's going on in the world. Also, I love the brokerage side, and I'm sure you probably see this on the legal side too, is that it's such an end to everything, right? If you're in the brokerage side, you deal with the banks, you deal with the attorneys, you deal with the appraisers, you deal with literally buyers, sellers, everything there is really in the industry. So I think it kind of keeps you really just in the loop and
continuously learning, right? You're always
Absolutely.
touching the different aspects of it. People don't realize how many moving parts there are to any given transaction.
That's right.
Real estate, it's more than just, title insurance and buyer side, seller sides, attorneys, and all of that stuff. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of things that could go wrong. What's your biggest, craziest issue that came up that was totally unexpected in a transaction, other than COVID?
So I've had a lot of investment sale deals that have been problematic in the last 2 years. There's not one big thing that stands out above all, but I've had a lot of issues with multifamilies and specifically C of Os, and New York City, clearly the zoning has evolved. So many things have changed. All these new local laws, everything's changing. But I've had so many issues with 4 families really being 2 families, or them having no C of Os at all, and then when they call to challenge it, there's just been countless things have come up. So I've had a lot of those title issues the last couple years, which has definitely affected my team. There's probably something that's going to come to me, but that's the biggest thing.
Good, you tell us later. So we were talking about it before. I didn't remember how we met, but it's one of those things where the relationship just gets ahead and moves on, and I feel like I've known you for years at this point.
Yeah, same here. Maybe through Nick, your cousin.
Possibly,
Yeah.
possibly. Handsome cousin
Or Celia.
Nick. Yeah, or Celia. But you run around and you meet the same people, your circles overlap, and that's one of the great parts about being in this industry. Tell me a little bit more about the types of industries that you service. For to give you an example, I represent a lot of restaurants. We do a lot of representation for construction companies, some lenders, but restaurants is something that I've always traditionally focused my legal services on. And from restaurants come all of these different aspects, one of which is real estate related, right?
Sure.
What are your industries that a lot of your clients seem to be in on the commercial side?
So I do primarily landlord representation. I kind of found a little bit of a specialty in hospitality leasing, which is much like yourself. It's something I've always had interest in. just being a foodie myself and just being, always trying out new restaurants. So I've always had the interest there, and it just by happenstance, I wound up representing a lot of restaurateurs and it really helping them throughout the process. So that's kind of been where I've spent, I guess, a lot of my time, especially on the tenant side. Landlord side, it's really any kind of business owner or landlord that is just looking for proper representation. Mainly on the island, but we've definitely branched out. I mean, right now, Walgreens is a big client of mine. We handle a lot of their subleases and dispositions on a lot of the stores that they're closing, with still having significant lease obligations. So that's something that we do across 3 states. So I'm very much involved on different aspects of the industry.
Got it. In the restaurant context, I've a couple questions. One, to give everyone who's in Manhattan and owns a restaurant a little bit of a heart attack or jealousy at least. Tell me a little bit about the going rates, size of the spaces, how much people are paying, terms, length of leases, things like that. What does a typical term sheet look like on a restaurant on the North Shore, which is a great area for restaurants on Staten Island?
Sure. So I think that's part of what why working with somebody like myself that is really tuned into the market really is just crucial, because the deals are all across the board. I mean, I've seen more often than not, I've actually been selling a lot of the real estate to the operators, at least the last 2 years. But from a leasing standpoint, I would say that your numbers are going to range anywhere from like $30 a foot up to call it like a $50 a foot. If you're in maybe like one of the more prominent centers that's more of a fund, like for example, like GGP that owns the Staten Island Mall, or now Brookfield, or Kimco, one of their centers, you're probably going to be in the 50s or so. You're looking at least a 10-year term. Your TI and TA packages completely range across the board depending on the condition of the space, and just there's so many factors, whether it's a new project. Those are like kind of the high level points. There's just so many things of just
even the buying that you mentioned. The operators buying the spaces. First of all, there's a lot of loans, SBA type loans, that if that's the case, you have a chance to do it. There's financing available to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't exist in Manhattan. You're not getting the chance to buy commercial space in Manhattan, or just one unit on a block in Tribeca, or the Financial District, or Chelsea, or any one of these areas. It's just not available.
Sure.
And if it is, it's a lot more expensive than it would be in Staten Island. I bring this up because during the pandemic, the city shut down. Right, the density problem that everybody was experiencing in terms of keeping everybody safe. The city was where the density problem existed. In the outer boroughs, everybody lived where everybody lives, I guess, who's from New York. You didn't have that density problem because you're in the suburbs, if you will. So those restaurants really picked up, and now with a lot of remote work, you have a lot of people these restaurants are just booming. There's a lot of demand for more and more and more restaurants, and they're not just when you get home from work from the city. Mm-hmm. They work on Staten Island, and they're filling up the restaurants during the day, which is something that wasn't always true 3, 4, 5 years ago. And so to hear these types of rents, knowing that there's no way in hell you're getting those types of pricing here, those terms are not coming up often. In the city, it's important both for a lot of our clients that have restaurants in Manhattan or some other areas that are still more expensive than Manhattan. There's a market there. Sure. Staten Island is the forgotten borough, but it's a booming borough. In a lot of ways, it's the final frontier, if you will, of areas around Manhattan that are still underdeveloped. And I think there's a good opportunity for restaurants. Vice versa might also be true. What are your thoughts on that? Staten Island restaurants that did really well during the pandemic. And again, restaurant industry suffered, we all know that, but there were a lot of success stories in Staten Island, and some of them use this opportunity or should consider expanding on it or jumping on it now that there are good deals in the city. Have you done any deals with really established places or new places in Staten Island that expanded to the city?
So, first off, Staten Island-wise, there definitely is a lot of opportunity. I mean, demographic-wise, we have tremendous demographics. We're the second highest median income in the city. So, and I do think there's a lot of voids. I mean, if somebody calls me for another pizzeria, I mean, I don't know if I'll even do it.
We do have the best pizza, though, just
Dude,
for anybody listening.
I would firmly agree
Brooklyn,
with that.
no nothing. Staten Island has the best pizza for sure.
So there are opportunities for those looking to expand to the island. Now, vice versa, I have some personal friends and clients. I mean, Joe and Pat's, for example, the owner is a good friend of mine. Yeah, I mean, just iconic. They are, I mean, through the family originally, actually, they have Ruby Rosa, and then Joe and Pat's now in the East Village, and they've done just very, very well. Most recently, I've heard that the Nino's has expanded to West Village. I was just at Minetta Tavern the other day and passed their spot. Great location.
Great location.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I do think those opportunities exist, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of them. I haven't really done so much on the leasing side, but I'd look forward to it. I mean, there's a lot of questions that come to mind. And I mean, I don't know how much opportunity you're seeing, which actually, if you don't mind, I have a question for you. What are you seeing for now? So the guys on Staten Island, for example, that have done well, were most of them were the ones that can capitalize on outdoor space.
Sure.
Right. So you can use somebody like Angelinus, for example. Right. He's on the tip, basically, almost Jersey. Right. He's in Tottenville. His business did absolutely tremendous because he has so much outdoor space, and now he tented it. He's done spectacular. Some of the other guys have done that too. Now, from a cost basis, are you seeing in New York that landlords are charging for outdoor space, or?
You're not allowed to charge for it. It's at least not yet. You're technically not allowed to, but I'm sure if you have a really nice, I guess, corner or space that has that, you're somehow incorporating it, or maybe you're being less flexible on terms because you know there's value there. But that whole world is going to change, at least in the city for sure. You can't go on like this forever. I mean, a lot of places, it's really been a change to the city. There's a lot of them that aren't, I guess, aesthetically appealing. There's a lot of problems with rats and things like that. All things that can be fixed. There's a middle ground. Just totally change the landscape of how you dine in the city. And it's really nice in many ways, but also creates other problems. I think the city's still trying to figure that stuff out. I believe they recently came out with regulations, and it's going to be open, not going to be enclosed, or at least proposed. I forget where they are exactly with it, but still a lot of work to do with that.
That was inevitable. I mean, that was some of these you see. I mean, I follow an Instagram page that just has all the best outdoor spaces and just how crazy they've gotten.
Some of them are really gorgeous. I mean, for sure.
But they're like full blown restaurants.
Yeah, and other ones are like containers with saran wrap around them, right? They're just really, really, really ugly. But at the time, it was a matter of survival, and they served a really important purpose.
Absolutely.
But now you have to have some standards, right? Because then the city's going to change. There's a lot of conflicting interests. You have multi-million-dollar apartments with a tenant downstairs that now has a really, really shady outdoor space, right? So at some point it has to balance and meet it. At the same time, that restaurant survives. They have a family. They have employees. They serve the city during the toughest years, during the pandemic. Who wins here, right? So there's a lot of problems with that, and I think that's why it's taking so long for the city to find its space. Outer boroughs, a lot more flexibility, parking lots. It's just a different infrastructure for it. It's set up for it. Well, the city, you have the bike lanes. There's a lot of problems.
Well, yeah, right. Between city bikes, bike lanes, and now these, I mean, parking is
double parking, trucks delivering food. I mean,
very
double. It's really triple parking, right? The one is the units, the outdoor dining, the roadway dining, and then next to that is a lane, which is already one lane in than it should,
right? As
a result of the dining, and then now they're parking, on top of it. Right. So it's.
And I haven't thought about rodents. That's got to be a major problem. I never really thought about it, but because it sounds like it would be a tremendous problem.
I mean, I could tell you conflicting. Like, what do you do first, right? You have to be still accessible, so ADA accessibility wheelchairs, which means you have to level it off. As a result, you have to create different height sections underneath the roadway to get it to a level so that the pitch from the sidewalk onto it is correct. So you're going to create these spaces underneath that are just perfect for rodents and stuff like that. So it's a problem. The city will figure it out. We always do. But I do agree that there's opportunity for restaurants in Staten Island to start looking at Manhattan. And a big theme for us here at the firm is introducing the quote-unquote little guy, right? Where I came from, where a lot of our clients come from, families that came with nothing, and they worked their butt off over the years and have something more than they had for their family. A big thing for us is to introduce those little guys, or the little guys that have taken over from their parents, to the new way or the new tricks or things that we've learned along the way, so that they can then continue to grow and have something to pass on to the next generation and the next one. And I feel like every time I get the chance to share some of those options that they didn't even know exist, all of a sudden they jump on them. Right? Mm-hmm. Joe and Pat's is an example. We didn't represent them on that, but to see an iconic, how long has Joe and Pat's been around? 60s, right? Amazing pizza, but to see them in the last few years to open up in the city, what happened? Somehow there was someone in the family that said, let's take this a step further. That's right? I'm sure the people who started it may not even be alive anymore, right? So something sparked that person to go in, and then with the right broker, the right agent who knows the market, makes them feel comfortable, introduces them, they're able to broaden their horizons and go in there. And that's a really big thing, is education, introducing them to how things are there, and only then will they even understand that there's an opportunity, you know?
Right.
So, but vice versa also applies. People think of Staten Island maybe as its own universe. It is. It has its own community, but it's a very, very busy, established community with a lot of good things going for it. One particular is the demographics. A lot of young people. Restaurants always packed everywhere you go.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're the forgotten borough, but I mean, the one thing that we don't have, well, I'll call it two things that we don't have that have really just been what has completely kept us to be a bedroom community, and that's is transportation, right? We don't have a subway, just call it what it is. That's number one. And then number two is density, right? So the North Shore is by far the most underdeveloped and undervalued waterfront property in the 5 boroughs. It's really the only spot left. Sure. And it's unbelievable. I mean, for example, the old Staten Island Yankee Stadium, I mean, one of the most beautiful venues in the city. I mean, just absolutely spectacular. But that density, the lack of density has obviously affected, the amount of people you can get in the door. But I do think there are changes that are being made, and I think as that evolves, I think that's going to really present more and more opportunities. And the North Shore is coming. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah.
It could be 5 years. It could be 30. I don't. It's hard to say, but it will happen. It's inevitable. It has to.
I always think of it exactly. It's the only part around Manhattan. From my office, I could see the North Shore, and we're on Wall Street here. I see the North Shore. It's right there, and it's underdeveloped by far.
Yep.
But it will be. It's inevitable. It has to happen.
That's right.
When, how, under what conditions. But it is, something that has to get done, and it's right there, which would then make it, really accessible once they solve some of these other problems. There was an article yesterday on ALM. It's a legal publication talking about the conversion of office spaces to residential, and then we talked about zoning earlier. Tell me about your experience with, variances and things like that in the Staten Island community, right? Things people are trying to develop. What is the buzz? What is the conversation about rezoning and changing? I know Bay Street has had some changes, kind of back and forth. Tell me about that.
Difficult. I mean, just difficult. It's been very political over the years. I mean, without getting too deep into it, I mean, the wheel was a real blow. I mean, that was. While it may have created traffic, there's no argument there. It would have been such a draw. I mean, even the most conservative numbers about the amount of people that would have came over was just unbelievable if you read it. I mean, the Staten Island Ferry falls between the 3rd and 5th largest tourist attraction in New York City every year. And that's only because people would get a free ride past the ferry.
Past the Statue of Liberty, yeah.
No, I'm sorry, since past the Statue of Liberty, that's right. So we've certainly proposed countless different projects, and it's not easy. I mean, even I was just on a very large project on the South Shore, which would have been, just the perfect opportunity for senior housing or just any kind of vertical living, and it hasn't been easy to make it happen. I mean, we just have so many voids, though, and just got to get the right support.
Do you think, in the same context of, maybe it's a step back, but I remember growing up, it was always if you had one family, converting it to a two-family was very, very difficult, right? Have you seen more people try to convert their one family to two successfully now, or maybe
No.
They're not even doing it yet?
No. I think on new construction, you're seeing almost always people will elect to do it too, no matter what, if the option is there. But I don't know if I've ever seen a successful conversion, to tell you the truth. Whenever you're going up, it just never works out.
Yeah. Do you think that'll change, and should it change?
If it's done responsibly, yes, I do think it should. But I think that the problem is that I think that a lot of developers took advantage over the years, right? And there's just a lot of, the most recent one was GCL 36 with the private roads. I don't know if you were following that much, but it was there. It was there for a reason, and that there was so much pushback, with the last borough president because of these private roads, and it was mainly because of all these private developments and these HOAs that just were completely fallen apart. The roads are a mess. The maintenance is a big issue. Even things like trash removal have just been really problematic.
Yeah. So and I mean the common thing is you built these houses 30 years ago. You didn't account for the day that all 4 of your kids are going to be driving, and every one of them is going to have their own car.
That's right. That's right.
Now add in a second family. Where is everyone going to go? Right. So the infrastructure has still have a problem. So
right.
Okay. So the new development, you think most people elect to do it? I mean, you still see gorgeous developments going up all over Staten Island that are still the opposite of two-family, right?
Well, the zoning in place now is right.
Yeah.
Now it's right. I mean, there was a lot of tricks that people use, like, for example, parking. You were allowed to do validated parking, but people never did it. So you have some of these parking lots that are they just can't sustain the traffic they have.
Yeah.
But no, the zoning in place now is definitely, it's right. It's just, I think that we need to see more density in certain areas, or just more flexibility for voids that we have in the market. Specifically, I mean, senior housing is a really big one. I mean, you got a generation that's phasing out. They don't want these houses. I mean, you've seen the size of some of these houses. They don't want the maintenance, but they have kids, grandkids here, right? Where are they going?
Where are they going to go?
Doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, yeah, you're right. That's very interesting. So you're seeing a demand for senior housing.
Oh, so big.
Got it. And that's amazing. You're right. There's so many people. Staten Island is a very, very old borough. It was populated. It wasn't until the Verrazano that people actually started developing there.
That's it. The baby boomers are the largest generation there.
Yeah. There's so many. Just off the top of my head that you bring it up, I can think of, per individual examples of, people that are now older, they're by themselves, but they have this 3-floor home.
That's it.
All by themselves.
They want to be in an elevator building. They want less maintenance, and honestly, they probably don't want to have a car, right? So it actually, it could fix a lot of problems.
And they want the entertainment too. They're very social.
That's right.
Very, very social.
That's right. We don't have a single 55 and over community.
Really?
Right,
what was the one by Angelina's that was out there? The Tides, what was it called?
The Tides.
Yeah, is that 50?
So that's been very successful. It's been resales that have taken off there. I don't know if it was nothing bad against the development. I don't know if I would call it a true senior 55 and over. I mean, it's got a lot of stairs, right? But it has stairs. It's a regular house. Great project. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But I don't think it's again. I think we need buildings.
Yeah.
Buildings, vertical buildings with elevators. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Is there anything contemplated or in the works? If you don't have to disclose like the details of it, but is there potential or proposed projects in the making?
There was one that I was aware of that was a perfect candidate for it, but the zoning wasn't in place for it. It required a full ULURP, and it was a matter of the support.
And this would have been on the North Shore?
South Shore.
South Shore.
Yeah.
Got it. I'm surprised. I just got to make another push for it.
Yeah, again, if done responsibly, I think it would be...
What was the pushback? They just didn't want to... Was it the building? They didn't want something 4 or 5 floors high?
It just hasn't been seen, right? So when there's not something... You know how it goes.
Yeah,
when there's no test case, right?
Sure.
They were going to resort to pretty much the zoning that's there, and the zoning was for single and 2-family detached housing.
Someone's got to make the first move in Staten Island, right? You said before about the wheel, and I remember, with Joe and BFC Partners, it's just a groundbreaking project that he undertook with the Empire Outlets, and the wheel was a big part of it. a lot of things happen in the world. But the wheel was, in fact, going to be a major attraction.
Absolutely, yeah.
My point is that then in turn creates people to come to the area, which then fills up the restaurants and the stores, and the community continues to grow. But there has to be a catalyst, something to create a demand for people to go there. Senior housing would also fill up restaurants, would also, vitalize the communities and the economies. Not that they're doing bad, but this would help, which then will turn into more of other things. But
Right.
a lot of work to do.
Right, so the wheel, I mean, everyone talks about the wheel, right? But it was on, and I could be, don't quote me here, but I think it was on a 7-acre park, right? And it had all the drivers to really create a stroller community, which is what we needed. It would have definitely allowed and paved the way for condos and just
Everything.
more density with residential, and that's what we need.
Yeah.
There's really not much for sale product. There's not any really new construction that is going up, at least on the sale side.
Mm-hmm.
So that project, the wheel, is now I think back up for RFP. So we'll see what
Oh,
the
really?
future of that looks like.
Amazing.
Yeah, they officially terminated the lease. So I'm definitely interested to see what winds up happening there.
Amazing. All right, let's turn to housing market.
Sure.
Briefly, just because you mentioned it now, what are you seeing in the market in terms of values, up, down, stale, people pulling back, taking houses off the market, or do you see more activity?
So I think that the demand has still been strong. Inventory is still very low. There hasn't really been any driver for people to sell. For the most part, anybody that's bought or refinanced in the last 5 years, they're not going anywhere, right, in this environment, because where are they going when you look at it from an interest rate standpoint? They're in the 2s, 3s, and now you're in the 6s. So it just it becomes, where do you go? With that said, we're still seeing, there's always been a migration from Brooklyn and from Queens, and we're still seeing a lot of that. So the prices have pretty much stayed stable. If not, they still probably going up, you would argue. Anything under $1 million is definitely there still. The market, the luxury market, has definitely been impacted. You're just not seeing much movement. Just kind of
holding
sitting.
tight.
Yeah, exactly.
What about migrating from Brooklyn, Queens, those areas to Staten Island? But what about migration out of Staten Island, places like Florida?
Absolutely.
Seeing a lot of that happening?
Yeah, listen, you always saw it to Jersey, but so you're still seeing one of two things. You're still seeing people still go to Jersey, obviously,
Yeah.
and even some of those areas that maybe were too far from the city originally, but now, since the COVID environment changed just the workforce forever, maybe they went out a little bit further, and that's how those areas like Koutsoudakis, I'll use for an example, that just really sustained, where it just, in 2017, half of Koutsoudakis was for sale.
Yeah.
But
And high prices.
Yeah, but actually no, there was a lot of opportunity there.
Okay.
Yeah, but then once COVID came, everything took off, and it's definitely stayed strong. But you are seeing a lot of people get or make the move to Florida or even the Carolinas. People are making definitely drastic moves.
I'm not going anywhere. I've been on New York. I'm staying in New York.
I don't think I'm ready to go there either.
Any tips, tricks, things to keep in mind for first-time home buyers, first-time investors in commercial real estate, things that are happening, opportunities for the person who's never dabbled in commercial real estate that they, could potentially do. They might be in a position where they made some bucks and are ready to make a move and get started.
So, this is going to sound selfish or a plug to the show, but it's really not. There really are two components that I think are absolutely crucial, whether you're a buyer for a home, whether you're a tenant, or any business owner or investor for that matter. I think you need an unbelievable broker, right? Somebody who is familiar with the market, has knowledge of everything going on, and can really negotiate deals properly. And you really need a real estate attorney that's looking out for you. You need somebody that truly understands, especially when it comes to commercial leasing.
Yeah.
I don't have to tell you, just some personal things I've seen recently. I had one where, I didn't do the lease, right, but just reading between the lines, the tenant signs a deal, long story short, he's in like a 50,000 square foot site. He's got 6,000 feet, and there was a clause in the lease that was not picked up that basically said that in the event the space next to you becomes vacant, that you absorb those taxes.
Sure.
So now all of a sudden they got this real estate tax bill that was for hundreds of thousands that was just completely missed.
Yeah.
And these are the kind of things that can really trip you up. I mean, increases, right? I mean, the whole 10% every 5 years, like that just doesn't fly in this environment, not with inflation the way it is, right? So there's just so many things that you really just need the right broker.
Issue spotting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Issue spotting on the broker side, you got to know what's out there, what's market, what are things trading for, how are deals getting done, being able to call out the other side and say, no, you're overplaying your hand. And then on the lawyer side, it's issue spotting. That's our job. Someone comes to you either with a deal or potential litigation, it doesn't matter. Either way, our job is to identify the issues and then account for them. It's up to the client to make a decision whether they want to waive it, ignore it, they're okay with it, they accept it, but we have to let them know, right? Because they think on the broker side, they're excited, they're getting a new business, starting a new business, there's a lot of things, everything's gravy. And so if you have the wrong broker, they're going to just look to get that deal done and then find an attorney who's also going to just get that deal done so that everybody gets paid. But you need someone who's going to look out for you and trust in their own work product that, no, my job is to get this person the right business so that they have a successful one, and then they'll come to me again when they're looking for their next space or their home.
That's right.
And the same thing on the lawyer side. So it's really interesting that you said that, because a lot of people, they say, even brokers many times, they get annoyed with the lawyer that we're over lawyering or we're killing the deal. We're not killing the deal. The deal, our job is to identify the issues, right? And a good broker is going to recognize that and appreciate it, and they work together. They're not, one's job's done, it's handed off to the lawyer, it's over. It's you become a team.
Absolutely.
And the team works for the client.
Yeah, absolutely. And far too often I see people using the wrong representation. You ask why, and it's, it's my cousin's friend or, somebody's friend. It's like, would you do that for a surgery? Would you go to some friend? Like, it really shouldn't be any different. I mean, this is your life. It's your family's livelihood. It's your life savings. It's possibly the biggest investment that you own or lease. It's just
too much at stake.
It's crazy to me that you would just not use the best person that is out there.
Yeah.
And the first thing when I'm dealing with a tenant, right, when I'm on the tenant side, the first thing I want to do is sit down. I want to understand your 5-year plan, right, and let's sit down and really figure that out and map it out. Because I just did a deal with somebody that it took us 3 years to find the location. It just really took that long to find the right spot.
Yeah, that actually is a really important question that most people don't ask, including lawyers. I ask the same question. We represent a lot of businesses. What is your goal, right? My job is to get you to that goal and navigate the legal side of things along the way. But that question, 5 years, if someone's plan is to maximize value because they already have a target buyer for their business and they want to secure the best deal possible, great. So then they're running lean and mean, increase the numbers,
Absolutely.
Large margin, long-term lease, right? Yep. If this is a 2-year hit, I got a concept, I'm nailing it, but I know in 2 years it's going to be over, well, then they don't want a 10-year lease, right? It's just, so if you're not asking the right questions, you're not going to get the right facts from the clients, right? Issue spotting on your end as well.
Absolutely. Good guy clauses. I mean, just kick out. I mean, so many different things. And there's also different ways to, I know business owners that are building a business to sell it, right? And I know plenty that are just building a business to make as much money as they can, and it's not the kind of, they're not building a business to sell it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so many different ways that things are run, and just those are all the things that your representation should understand and be out there really fighting for you.
And that the same applies on the landlord, right? You're representing the landlord, they're looking for a space. They don't want them to just flip the script and just change it to whoever it is. They want certain protections. What type of tenant is this person going to get? So if the landlord side figures out that, the tenant is potentially trying to do this, then they'll call that out, and you can account for that properly or market the right tenants to the right tenant so that doesn't happen. It works on either side, the landlord side or the tenant side, and both for the landlord's agent or the landlord's attorney. That's our job, either side you're on.
Absolutely. I mean, when we sit down, I'm handling a shopping center in Jersey right now. It's 50,000 feet, completely vacant. We're starting a complete clean slate. And we sat down and we went through like what we're really looking for, what the goal is, because we spend a lot of time on tenant synergies. And the right landlords, the guys that I really, the owners that I really love working with are so mindful of that. We turn down a lot of tenants because we want to make sure that we have the right synergies, not only for longevity of the center, but also for the tenants, right? So depending on what the center is, for example, if it's one that doesn't have a lot of parking, right, we want uses that are going to be quick. We want uses that aren't going to be parking intensive. We want to be mindful of the hours. These are just all things that we really sit down and we come up with like that global plan, which again all ties into what the goals are of the client, whether it be tenant side, landlord side, or so on and so forth.
Yeah, asking the right questions, right? Future market predictions. Last part.
So, more than ever,
big question. It's a very broad, and answer it how you wish.
Right. So more than ever, I think that you're seeing value retail is performing better than anything else. Right. So on all the subleases that I'm involved in, almost all of them are value based, discount stores, homeware, furniture. Those are all service based businesses or value based retail are the only guys that I'm really seeing expand. Otherwise, I think people are pulling back from a sector. Sectors as a whole. I still like the multifamily market, but locally, I think that there are a lot of looming regulations that will certainly have an impact as a landlord. But I'm definitely ultimately still bullish on retail, the right retail. Industrial still performing well, depending on the sizing. And listen, at the end of the day, speaking from a Staten Island basis, I firmly believe we're the most undervalued borough. We still have a ton of growth. We didn't see that crazy spike the way the other boroughs did, so I don't think you're going to see that crazy pullback either.
Yeah, and that never happened because for that exact reason, you're not going to see a dip. I mean, houses are going up; they continuously do, and there's a lot of people moving to Staten Island.
Absolutely,
because it has a lot of the things that you're looking for your family, for the community, and even the transportation commuting has gotten a lot better.
Absolutely.
So, all right, well, Rob, thanks as always.
My pleasure.
It was really nice to have you here in the office. And PreReal, Rob, we'll post his contact information. Reach out to him, explore. If nothing more, it's always good to know what's out there, and you never know when your paths may cross.
Absolutely. Listen, thanks for having me. For those who haven't had the privilege of coming up here, your office looks amazing, man. I'm so proud of you guys. I love what you're doing. So, again, thank you so much.